welcome to Go Comedy, and let's just say, please put your hands together for your host, Amy Oakwood.
Thank you, everyone. How's everyone feeling tonight? Good? Nice. Welcome to Let's Just Say, Go Comedy Storytelling Night. Thank you so much for spending the evening here with us. What you're going to see tonight, well, first, by a show of hands, who's been to a storytelling night before, whether here or somewhere else? Okay, so I see most of you. Okay, I'm going to explain the show anyways, even though you probably know how it might work. So, how it's going to work is each of the storytellers to my right is going to come on stage and tell you a true story from their life. And even though we're at Go Comedy, it doesn't necessarily have to be a funny story. You might hear some sad stories, some sentimental stories. And the only thing that they have in common is they are based around the theme for this month, feast, which could mean a lot of things. It's a very broad term, and that's on purpose. Obviously, feast can mean, just anything having to do with the holidays or a celebration. It can also imply being indulgent or excessive in any way. And then it could also have, something to do with our expectations towards big events, or it could just be about a really good, delicious meal. All of those things count, and anything else counts that, can be related back to the theme. And there's very few rules to this, but the one rule that we really have is stories are supposed to be 7 minutes or less, and so I will be timing storytellers, and the way I will let them know that they've reached 7 minutes is I have this little harmonica necklace that I will play very softly. Maybe I'll play a song. There's only like 4 notes on here, but it's kind of impressive when I try to play a song. And so, like if I just go like this, it looks like I'm doing a song. So, did I cover everything? I think so. And I'm gonna tell a story first. My story having to do with feast starts with a breakup, as many stories do. And this was a few years ago, but I broke up with a guy that I had been dating for about 2.5 years, and we had been apart for about a month, and I was reaching that point where I was finally feeling okay, and so I did the thing that you shouldn't do when you break up with someone, which is just check in with them, because everything's super cool now, and you can just chat like normal people. So I did that, and we caught up, and then we slept together again, and then we got to relive the whole breakup again. So I was 2 days out from that, so I was feeling pretty low, and I didn't want to do anything or talk to anyone, but I worked at a brewery at the time, and we were having our 10-year anniversary, and really awesome owner rented a party bus so that we could all go down to a Tigers game. And I had been planning on going, but because of what had just happened, I decided to do the much more fun thing, which was sit home and stare at the wall and be sad. And those are my plans, but I wanted to make an appearance because I told everyone I was going, and these were some of my best friends. So I get there, and so I decided to go to the pregame part, which is just at the brewery. And I get there, and everyone seems to be a few drinks in already, and no one seems to be paying for anything. And the bartender, Jeremiah, has just taken all the growlers that were for sale, and he's filling them up with beer to take on the bus. And everyone's fine with this. And I walk up to my friends, Scott and Emily, and I'm just like, hey guys, and they're sassy server attitude. They're like, did you lose 160 pounds? And I was like, what? Oh, and then Emily was like, I'd say more like 180. And this kind of shade toward my ex, which everyone at this job hated, was just what I needed to be like, okay, I'll have one drink. And I started drinking, if you drink craft beer, you probably know this already, but Belgian doubles. I started drinking a Belgian double, and that is like a super rich, dark, thick, sweet, kind of tastes like dates and molasses. It was drank by monks who were fasting because it has that many calories that it's actually a meal. And we were like chugging it like Miller Lite out of growlers. And my one drink turned into me having a growler on the bus. And I'm like looking around and being like, this seems a little like it's gonna get out of control really quickly. And I say this to my friend Matt. He's like, oh yeah, we're like one flat tire away from this being a scary movie. Because everyone's just like, woo! And so we go downtown. We don't get a flat tire. We actually get to Detroit early enough to terrorize a bar outside of Comerica Park for a while. So we're there, and there's like 25 of us, so like everyone else ends up leaving because we're the worst, and we're just drinking and talking at the highest volume possible. And I remember looking up and like making eye contact with like a dishwasher in the kitchen who was looking at all of us like he wanted to fucking murder us. And and then I looked away right away because that's a drag, and I just turned back to my friends and joined back in the loud assholery. And as soon as we get to Comerica Park, I promptly fall asleep sitting up, and I stay that way for the entirety of the game. And there's many pictures of me on the internet, asleep sitting up, surrounded by all my smiling coworkers. But I wake up right when the game's ending, probably because like instinctually I'm like, don't get abandoned at Comerica Park. And so and I'm back, and like on the bus right back we're like dancing to basically Only Happy by Pharrell, because the bus driver kept changing the channel, and it was like the only song on the radio at the time. But that was fine. Because it was perfect. I was happy. I wasn't thinking about my ex. So we get back to where the brewery is, and everyone's got like 4 more hours in them, because waiters, if you're like a true waiter and bartender, like drinking's like your first job, and like serving customers is like a distant second. Like you are very good at drinking, and you don't stop until you legally have to. So, and it's only like 10 p.m. So I'm like, and I can't hang like that. So I was like, I need to get away from these people, and if I say bye, they're not gonna let me leave. So I just sprint off the bus without saying bye to anyone. And so I get home, and I feel just sick at this point, and I'm one of these people that will do anything to not throw up, even if like I really need to, and it would really just end my suffering. And Easter had been a few days before that, and I had a huge bag of chocolate bunnies, like 6 or 7 of them. Not just chocolate bunny, so I had Morley chocolate bunnies, I had Saunders chocolate bunnies, I had Cadbury cream eggs, I had a bag of mini Saunders chocolate bunnies. And, cause my grandma's awesome, you guys, and she gets this for all of her grandkids. And chocolate is very comforting to me, and I just become convinced that if I eat enough chocolate, it will cancel out the rich molasses beer I've been drinking all day. So I eat all of it. I eat all of it in like a frenzy of pastel foil and ribbons just everywhere. I probably take 4 minutes to eat it all. And while it's happening, I'm kind of on the fence of whether this is really going to help me not get sick, but it feels great, so I just keep going. But then immediately when I finish, I realize I made a terrible mistake, and that I'm probably going to become violently ill. But I'm still in denial, and I go into my bathroom, and I'm really afraid of throwing up. So like I rip all the towels off the walls and like make a little towel nest for myself on the floor. And I'm still just like, I'm totally fine, like I can handle this, I'm just gonna hang out on my towel nest for like a minute, but I'm gonna be fine. So I threw up a lot, and I deserved it. No one would do something like that and should expect anything different. But it was fine. But my roommate came home to just the floor covered with colored tinfoil in a trail to the bathroom, with a towel nest that no one was in because I was in my bed. She was fine though, and it was honestly after that. I was still sort of sad about the breakup, but like the day that I guzzled doubles and like ate 7 chocolate bunnies in 5 minutes was really like a before and after for me because I didn't talk to him after that, and I still haven't, and it's been 3.5 beautiful years. And the reason is because I remember that day as me realizing I have this army of people who are down for indulging with me for the sake of just being happy at a moment's notice. And if I have that, then I don't need to call them an ex. So that's my little dream. So now moving on to our first storyteller. Her name is Annie, and she is an axe master, I am told. She works at Detroit Axe, which just opened down the street at 9 Mile. She also has a great story to tell you, so please give a warm welcome to Annie Wagner.
So, my good friend Cece and I hadn't seen each other in nearly a year. So we decided to meet up from our respective cities across the United States, fly in for a long weekend. We sat at a bar, immersed in heavy conversation. Well into our 3rd drink, we had a lot of issues to cover. Our midlife malaise, our recent bittersweet empty nests, and our sexless lives. Her husband hadn't touched her in over a year. Mostly, she thought, because of her middle-aged weight gain and her failed attempts at dieting. I, on the other hand, had been practicing intentional celibacy for, wait for it, the previous 2.5 years since I ended my last long-term relationship. So Cece and I, we were, at least on that one level, starving. So at one point the bartender, he looks over me, there's someone behind me, and he says, "Hey, you want a drink? Step on up." Well, I hear this voice say, "Yes, but I don't want to invade her space." Her, being me. Well, I had had a few drinks. So, my brain clicked, my delivery instantaneous and flawless. He says, "Yes, but I don't want to invade her space." And I turn, look him up and down, and say, "Come on in, baby. I got room for you." Now, in my mind, I'm not making a pass, I'm making a joke, because per my previous conversation, I'm the crusty old lady. Next to me is a very fit, young, decades younger gentleman, very well dressed, ridiculously attractive, nice haircut, okay, probably gay. So I smile and laugh at my joke and turn back to my friend. Well, the young gentleman doesn't see the humor in the situation. He sees nothing but opportunity. 2 middle-aged, sexually frustrated suburban soccer moms on vacation, counting martinis. He did the math. He didn't take long to chat us up, but when he realized that Kate was in fact married, he turned all of his attention to me. And we got along famously. So his attention very quickly became physical. He touched my arm, he touched my leg, the small of my back, and after another drink, he tucked the hair behind my ear, traced the outline of my face, and right there in the bar, he kissed me. And I did the math. Willing male, under 30, 2.5 years. Yes, I went with it. Because I knew this was never going to happen to me again. And it was spectacular. I lost all sense of time and space. The world slipped away. It was just us embraced in this passionate, endless movie quality kiss. Eventually, we paused. I collected myself as best I could. But very quickly became aware and afraid of what my friend was going to say. And I will never forget. She looked me dead in the eye, and she said, "I'm ordering nachos." As if to say, baby, you get yours, I'm gonna get mine. And so we did. She sat there, indulged in this highly forbidden and anticipated cheese-covered meal, and I gleefully gorged myself on a gorgeous stranger who wanted to take me to his hotel room. But, you know, the best wing woman ever is chiming in between shifts. She's not going anywhere. So I graciously declined his offer. You know, I looked at him deep into the abyss of those dark chocolate eyes. And I said, this was our moment. It was beautiful. I will treasure it forever. Thank you. Anyway, so I said goodbye. And Cece and I walked to the train station, arm in arm. And I asked her, how long did she think it would be before he approached another sexually frustrated middle-aged suburban soccer mom on vacation? Not long, she agreed. Not long. We also agreed that she needed to upgrade to a better vibrator and that it was time for me to come out of hiding. Because as the events of the evening had convinced me, Mama is still juicy. There's a lot of life to be lived, and if done correctly, magic can happen in the moment. I was reminded that I have a very good friend. We will be there for each other no matter what. We'll meet up on vacation, drink martinis, flirt with younger men, share our heartaches, and order nachos. Thank you.
It's hot in here. Our next storyteller is a improviser and actor and all-around funny guy. Please give it up for Mike Magyar.
Hey everybody, my name's Mike Magyar, and I'm going to tell you a story about my childhood. And I was born in Romania, and usually when I tell people about Romania, I usually get two answers. One is, I have no idea what that is, and the other one is people reminding me of that South Park episode where it was described as the asshole of the world. Both of those things are equivalent to me. And growing up in Romania, in a former communist country, there's a lot of things that I was witness to that I don't think really anybody here would experience in their lives. One of which was these things called bread lines. And in order to get bread and milk and dairy when I was growing up, your parents would have to go out and through word of mouth with their friends, they had like these kind of secret hush-hush gatherings. They would figure out which stores would have milk and dairy and meat on which days, and they would literally go out and wait in line. I think because the powers that be that controlled the country thought that capitalism was represented by a piece of salami, and they didn't really want any kind of influence to break us away from the motherland. So my Saturdays would start something like this. It would be my dad coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to go to this store and wait in the bread line. Your mom is going to go to this store and wait for dairy, and then your grandma is going to go wait for meat at a different store, and in 10 to 14 hours, hopefully we all come back together and you get to eat a sandwich. So these kinds of things were common all the time, and to kind of eat more than once or twice a month whenever you'd be able to have the ability to get bread and meat and cheese in these lines, most people's parents would have farms, and we had a farm as well. And it was extremely old. It was a building whose walls were made of dirt, whose ceilings were made of dirt, and whose floors were made of dirt, which made cleanup really, really easy. On these compacted dirt floors, if you dropped even a little bit of water, it would basically turn into kind of a communist version of a slip and slide. And that's very important, and I need you guys to remember that for later. We had all kinds of animals on this farm, like pigs, chickens, all sorts of things. But we also had a prehistoric beast that was the size of a VW Beetle, that was this gigantic male pig with these crazy looking fangs. And whenever this thing would go feed, we would have to clear the courtyard of any dogs, cats, chickens, other pigs, because it would just eat anything. And all was well and good until one day when my parents forgot to tell me that this pig was going to be set loose. So I'm sitting in the yard and I'm just kind of playing around, looking at this gigantic pile of manure that was always there. And all of a sudden I hear this crazy, guttural, just horrible, I'm about to die sound. And I see the shadow of this car-sized pig coming around the corner. So I was 8 years old, and I immediately shit my pants and book it as hard as I possibly can to the front door of the house. Now, if you remember, I told you that the floor was made of compact dirt. Unbeknownst to my 8-year-old self, someone had spilled some water on the floor. So I'm running at what feels like 87 miles an hour trying to get away from this pig that's going to eat me alive. Because I had determined in my 8-year-old mind that this is not how my story ends. Okay? I'm not going to get eaten by a pig in a communist country at 8 years old. That's not how it's going to end for me. So I'm running, trying to get into this house. I hit the patch of the communist slip and slide, and I go flying into a cabinet. And the only thing that I remember is me and this pig made eye contact. And I stared at him and he stared at me. And he was going to eat me. So I mustered up whatever strength I had left and I kicked the gate to the door shut right in his dumb pig face. And somehow I made it out alive out of that ordeal. I spent the next 12 months convincing my parents to kill and eat this pig, which they would not do because apparently this pig was better at screwing the other pigs than any other pig in the So my brush with near death was not enough to warrant them killing a pig that fucked other pigs really good. Priorities, I guess. chickens on this farm. And one summer, we had a bunch of little chicks laying around. And there was one that was like kind of the smaller runt of the whatever the equivalent of a chicken litter is. I don't know, gaggle, whatever. And I like this little guy. For whatever reason, him and I kind of formed a bond. And I named him Tarzan. And I don't know if he was a boy chicken, just for the record. I don't know if he was a boy chicken or a girl chicken, because I'm not really sure what boy chicken parts are or what girl chicken parts are. But in my mind, his name was Tarzan. And I trained this chicken to come to me when I would call it. I would call his name and I would whistle, and it would come to me. It wouldn't act like any of the other chickens, be all like skittish and whatever. And it would just come to me, it would sit on my lap, and I would pet it, and it would fall asleep, and I would feed it from my hand, and him and I would hang out. We'd go on adventures together. We would go find dead bodies in the woods. We would sit around, look at the clouds, tell each other what kind of shapes we'd see. Just generally have a really good, solid relationship. And right out of the gate, I told my parents, I was like, listen, this chicken is going to live on this farm, and he's going to grow to his old chicken age. He's going to die of natural causes. You are not going to take this chicken away from me. You got your stupid fucking pig, I'm keeping this chicken. So, him and I forged this crazy bond. I teach him how to stand on my shoulder. And we would walk around with him on my shoulder like some crazy communist Captain Hook hybrid. And just generally, just have a great time. And towards the end of the summer, it was time for me to go back into the city and look forward to the once a month sandwich from the Breadlines. And we were eating dinner and just saying our goodbyes and whatever. And after having eaten everything, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find Tarzan because I want to say goodbye. And so I'm looking around and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like I'm just going around the yard going, Tarzan. Come here, buddy. Come here. Nothing. Usually he would just come around from whatever corner or spot he was in. He would just come right out and come run at me. I spent like 3 hours looking for this chicken, you guys. You guys know what's coming. The entire time, my parents are just not really helping at all. They're just kind of like sitting around the side, and I'm like, guys, seriously, I'm not going back anywhere until you tell me where this chicken is. And my grandma pulls me aside, and she's like, hey, we need to talk. And she was like, well, your great-grandma forgot which one was Tarzan. You ate him for dinner 30 minutes ago. And I'm okay now. I mean, sure, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on therapy, but who hasn't? Moral of the story is, you guys, vegetarians have it right because you can't accidentally eat your best friends. And in case anybody here is thinking that this story is made up, this is a picture of me with Tarzan. Yeah! Thank you.
I'm Romanian too, and Mike's the only person I've ever met who's Romanian. I was born in Southfield though, and none of that happened to me. R.I.P. Tarzan. Our next storyteller is a comedian, podcaster, and friend to all. Please welcome Ellen Stackowitz.
Just want a very safe friend. And I hope that you guys would consider me a friend. We could be friends. Or I could just go into my story. But and then maybe I'll tell a heartwarming story and you'll want to be my friend because of that. before I tell my story, I just want to say thank you to Steven Hillenburg, creator of SpongeBob, for giving birth to my grandmother's least favorite grandchild, SpongeBob. And I want to say no thank you to my Auntie Carolyn, who, this is going to sound really mean, provided the Thanksgiving dinner this year. I want to say no thanks for that dinner, because it's going to get better. I know that was a mean thing to say, but it was the day after I was at work. I had my plate full of leftovers, and I was in a really bad mood, and I figured out why, because there was no leftover Thanksgiving sauerkraut that I had come to expect after every family gathering of my 22 years of life. No matter what, there was always Polish food at every family gathering. And I looked this up. There was no Polish food at this Thanksgiving, because this was the first Thanksgiving that my grandmother was not present at. This means Thanksgiving, by the way. It's just the table full of it. Was not at Thanksgiving. Her ashes are in a box under the ground, and that's it. My aunt had taken the reins and made Thanksgiving by herself for the first time, and I say no thanks to it, because I think everyone was thinking, no matter how wonderful the dinner was, and it was really nice, and I really appreciate the work that she did. No matter how nice it was going to be, it was the Thanksgiving that nobody wanted to have, that we were all prepping for, but still hit when it hit. Not only was my grandma gone, but before she passed away, her house, there was some sort of a water thing, and this kitchen had to be torn apart, and the living room. The house is still not what it was. Everything is torn apart currently, and they're currently fixing it up before it's sold forever. It was a beautiful house on a lake, and we had to have Thanksgiving at my aunt's house. Small little house where my uncle, my other uncle spent in the basement with a couple of beers. The tiny, tiny little kitchen was my aunt's, and all the kids in the TV room. And we did our best, and it wasn't a bad time. It wasn't a great time. But I think we were all expecting our grandma to be there, because she was maybe the only constant in my life, the only thing I knew who was going to be there, and the only thing I knew was going to believe in me when no one else did. And, there's no other way to describe her without sounding like a cliche, but it was tough. It was tough. And then I realized she wasn't a constant, and you can't expect people to be constants in your life, and you shouldn't, and that's fine. But I did have a constant. I had the TV room. I had all my cousins, and what was on the TV? Good old family-friendly SpongeBob. And he is a constant, because let's face it, Nickelodeon is riding on SpongeBob. Without SpongeBob, their ratings are going to tank. So it doesn't matter how weird the episodes are going to get. They're going to keep pumping out episodes till the day I die. And that's fine. Because I realized that SpongeBob's important here, for a reason. The oldest in my family, my sister, at the age of 26. The youngest, my cousin at the age of 8. 14-year-old cousin controlling the remote, because she has a very demanding personality, and we just all run with it. I put Stranger Things on. Okay, kind of scary. But they seem to be okay with it. My 8-year-old cousin, I was kind of watching, struggling to understand, but wants to be cool, wants to fit in. And I'm coming in and out of the room with cups of wine, hoping they don't notice, and leave the room, kind of feeling uncomfortable. Come back, SpongeBob's on. And I think that was, it was an important moment. I feel like that was something my grandma would have done. In a way, that she would, very loving person, wanted to make sure everyone felt included. Everyone from my mom, my dad, my aunts and uncles, down to my 8-year-old cousin, to the family dog, my aunt's dog, walking around with his neck in a permanent, just up position, hoping people are gonna throw food at him, which they did. He had a fine Thanksgiving as well. I didn't think that SpongeBob would be the thing that was going to make me feel okay that Thanksgiving. But he was, because he's been there since day one. He's going to keep being there, for better or worse. I miss my grandma. I love my family. But you know what? I'm thankful for the things in my life that had to go, but I'm also thankful for the thing that I can count on. If only I didn't pawn the heirlooms. But I've got SpongeBob, okay? I've got SpongeBob. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. You can find our next storyteller on Twitter at JR Certified Bad Boy. Please welcome JR Sturberg.
Sun Tzu says, forces are structured systematically when they're aligned. It's 7 p.m. and after a large dinner, my family would always go about and do their thing. I would go watch Star Trek The Next Generation. My dad would rest in his chair. My brothers would go play a game of pickup football. And my sister would probably go read while my mom would clean up the kitchen. But on this day, that did not happen because of what my mom was about to say. Who took my spatula? And we all looked at each other because none of us took her spatula. We didn't know what she was talking about. Mom, I didn't take your spatula. Nobody took your spatula. And the thing that everybody here is probably thinking, who would take a spatula? Sun Tzu says, when they are strong, avoid them. My family's normal, which is to say we're fucking weirdos. And the thing is, my dad, when I was in middle school, broke into the school using nothing but my library card in order to get my homework. My sister scared the hell out of me, she's 10 years older than me, by making me watch scary movies and making The Gate completely unwatchable for me. My mom has been wanting to be a phlebotomist since she was 10 years old, which she does now. And my brothers would play Watch Out for That Dart, where the objective of the game was, watch out for that dart. So my mom sort of took this insanity and, as a defense mechanism, turned it into a sort of stubbornness. So whenever somebody was wronging her, no matter what it was that we had done, she would attach to that idea and stick to it. Mom, I just want to get up from the table. Who took my spatula? Sun Tzu says, when they are weak, that is when you take your defense. Sue, my dad would say, why don't you just look in other places for it? Maybe you misplaced it. I'm sorry, Jerry? Misplaced it? Okay. And then proceeded to take out every dish, every piece of silverware, every piece of food, and 20-year-old peanut brittle from the back corner of any closet my mom could find, and lay it out on the table in front of us, and on the counter, in order for us to see that, in fact, somebody had taken her spatula. Sun Tzu says, when you are angry, what you should do is stay calm. My sister looked over to my friend, my brother Mike, who's also my friend. And Mike instantly knew what she thought. Oh, just admit to it. Just lie about taking the spatula. You will take the fall this time. So my brother Mike stood up and he said, Mom, I took the spatula. Where is it, Mike? She called his bluff like as soon as he said it, she knew that he was lying. Mike, if you take the fall for this, then the real perpetrator is going to get away with it. And this is the thing, is that now we're stuck in this situation where we can't lie about taking the spatula, and also the spatula's missing, but nobody took it, but we're gonna have to sit at this kitchen table until who knows how long, until somebody admits to stealing the spatula. Sun Tzu says, invincibility is in oneself. Vulnerability is in the opponent. It's now 3 a.m. We've been sitting at the table for long enough where we can't talk to each other anymore. Where my mom is furious at us for whatever reason, and we can't figure out what to do. My sister stands up. And my mom shoots at her. What do you think you're doing? Remember, all the drawers and everything are empty, and nothing could possibly be anywhere. My sister says, Mom, nobody took your spatula. And she goes over to the kitchen and she starts looking in all the nooks and all the crannies that my mom might have missed. Anything. Pulling like the back corners out, pieces of dust and everything. And we see her bend down. And we can't see anything now, but what we do hear is a drawer open. And then a clinging and clanging of plates and pots and pans. It's the oven drawer. My mom had missed something. My sister stood up with the spatula in hand and held it over her head like a trophy from a hunter's kill. Mom, nobody took the spatula. And she put it back down and she looked at us, all of us, with resentment and pride. And she sat back down. Sun Tzu says, everybody thinks that victory is good, but it is not good. Since that time, we've called that the spatula incident in my family. And we all know what it is. And we've been through deaths, and we've been through that house that we lived in burned down, and a lot of tragedy has happened in our lives. But the thing is that I feel like that incident helped us all prepare for that kind of stuff. So what I learned from it is that even when your mom is completely wrong, she's still right. Thank you.
No one took spatula. No one. Our next storyteller is a comedian, actress, improviser, all kinds of wonderful things. Please give a warm welcome to Esther Navarez.
Hello. So, about 10 years ago, I was in my 30s. My friend Jackie and my cousin and I went to Windsor. We went to Canada. There's a little Italy there. I don't know if you knew that. Very nice. There's a restaurant called Noi, and we got all dressed up and went to this nice restaurant, which I never did because all through my 20s and before that of my 30s, I just felt like if a restaurant had cloth napkins, I can't go in there. I'm gonna mess something up. Like, I don't have the money for that. I don't have the manners for that. But my friend assured me this restaurant's really nice and it's affordable and it's this really great area, this little Italy, which no one else knows exists somehow. I didn't know it was there. And so we went to this restaurant, and we would go frequently, and we went on a regular basis, and it was our get dressed up and makeup and go to this restaurant and eat fancy. So we go in, we had a few drinks, we came out, we're walking to our car, and this man rolls up on a BMX bike. He wasn't even riding, he was just walking it. Rolled up on the BMX bike, rolled up to us, lifted up his shirt and said, "You think you guys could help me out with this?" stuff was out. I thought that's why you were laughing. I was like, it was that. But yes, his business was out for the looking at. And my first friend Jackie went up to it and she saw it and was just like, motherfucker, God damn it, again? Why does this always happen to me? I had no idea that she's been getting flashed left and right her whole life. We've known each other since elementary school. I didn't know she'd ever been flashed. It was like, and then it made me think, because I thought that was the first time I got flashed, but in reality, I was flashed in high school. I was driving and a man drove by in the gray van that they give pedophiles. I didn't even know that was a stereotype. I thought that just happened to me personally. That happened once and I had just apparently blocked it out because I was driving and it wasn't so close. And this one was a ride by. The next one's going to be on foot. I know this. But, so, she sees that. My cousin, Angie, she goes up to the guy, like we're kind of just staggered. She sees it. She's been drinking more than all of us. I was driving. She had her contacts in. Angie, if she's drinking, her contacts get really dry. She goes up and she gives a real good look, real close, and blinking her eyes, going, what does he need help with? Is his seat ripped? What is he? Like she can do something to help him. Like, I don't know what she saw that close. It was bad. But what it looked like, too, was messed up. Because it wasn't like something you would think you'd want to present. It did need help. It was just there all bleh. You know, like a raw piece of chicken. Just there. And it didn't, like, it was just there. It wasn't going to do anything to us. It was not ready. It was not prepared to hurt us in the least. And he had on button-fly jeans that he buttoned the top button and shoved it all up the hole. So it was a premeditated craft project that he had done of his flashing. Like, it was thought out, it was groomed, I remember these things. It was all ready to show. And I now know, we've all heard in the news now all the different ways that people react to this type of sexual encounter. Some people freeze, some people get scared. Apparently, I get really mad. That's what happens. I got really angry. And I'm just like, I'm gonna call the police. But I was in Canada, and I don't know how to call the police. I have no idea. I'm like, does 911 work? I'm roaming. How much do I want to pay? So I heard this guy, so I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. Is a horse going to come? I don't know. So I did not call the police because I didn't want to do that. So my next instinct was run him over. So go down the street. We run to our car. It's a one-way going the opposite direction from him, which was kind of a bummer. So I'm like, I gotta go around the street, like tearing down the road, thinking if the cops come and get me for driving bad, I can say, but the guy with his thing out. So then I get over there, he's gone. So my instinct is to be angry and run a man down. So that's cool. I guess that's better than some. So better than some fight or flight. I'm like, run him over. So I get there, he's gone. But what I did notice was that right where we were standing in this corner in Windsor, right above that, a shady upstairs massage parlor. So right there, that's where he could have gotten it taken care of. We could have just told him that all along. Thank you guys.
I have to say, everyone is like really hitting the 7-minute mark, like mwah, like that was like 6:45. So hats off to everyone. Our next storyteller is an improviser, and Her name is Michelle Giolando. Please give her a welcome.
Hi everyone. So yes, I'm a Girlando, and my family is very Italian. I am the palest Sicilian you will ever meet. So we're very Italian, and so therefore we know food. Like food is our thing. It's what we do. We have days where we get together to make the food. I mean, we make the food. We talk about the food. We eat it. We talk about it some more, we eat it again, we argue over who has to take it home, but we know food. So my earliest memories at our family cottage revolve around food, like the time when we were really little, my cousin Megan and I made like quintuple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and my grandma caught us and made us eat them, because when you grew up in the Depression and you were hungry, that was probably horrifying. To watch this like food gasm with these children, and we would climb this giant willow tree in our yard, and we would hang a basket from a jump rope, and our moms would put food in it and bring it up, and we'd talk about it, and we'd eat it and get some more, and so just food is our thing. And every time we get together, our meal is this grilled breaded chicken with amogio sauce, which is like this garlicky tomato sauce. We eat it with homemade bread that my grandma made, and it's so good. And we eat it with this Italian wedding soup, which, till I was like 19, didn't realize that our name for it, which is maggot soup, was weird. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's real gross. But we've called it that for 50 years, because when my Aunt Rosemary was a kid, she said it looked like maggots. So, 60 years later, that's what we call it. But for my family, our pinnacle with food is cannolis. We're Sicilian, we do cannoli, like it's amazing. So we have a day where we get together. It's in early November every year, and we make the shells for the entire coming up year. We make like 50 dozen. And I know that it involves shortening, and I know that it involves flour and some oil, and that's about it. Because I don't know the whole process, because none of us do. Each of us cousins only knows a specific part, which is crazy. So I know, like, my job is to roll out the dough in the pasta maker, and I cut it out with a cup that we've used for 60 years, and it makes the circles. So I can't tell you how the dough is made, and I cannot I can't physically show you how you wrap it around the dowel and get it ready to go in the oil, because I've been banned from that job, because I'm really bad at it and burning shells. But it's kind of diabolical and genius, I think. My grandma said, when I asked her about it a few years ago, she was like, none of you know how to do the whole thing. You have to work together to do it. So I was like, that's genius. So because there's 15 of us grandkids. So 15 grandkids, you get 15 different personalities and different opinions, 15 different political views, and so we have to work together to this. So this past year has been very trying, as you can imagine. I've realized I don't like some of my cousins, but it doesn't matter, because my whole life it's family, and you might not like them, but you have to love them. And it's okay, because nobody's done anything horrible. It's more like, I believe vaccines are good and don't cause autism. So I haven't had to disown anybody. But I've always thought wow, that's genius. We all have to work together to do this. I know that we use Robin Hood flour and King Arthur flour for some medieval combination to make this, and I know there's real cream and not ricotta in the cream, but I don't know anything else about it. So that's a genius move on my grandma's part. And like I was saying, we go through the shells and we finish them at Easter every year. This year was different. This past January, we finished them early. We finished them in January at my grandma's funeral, which sucked. And so this November, when we had our cannoli day, I was like, oh, it's gonna be weird without grandma. But it wasn't. Like, I got there and it was all the same, and I put my apron on that my auntie made me, and I took my place at the dough, and I was like, oh yeah, because this is my place in my family. And so now I have, 12 dozen cannoli shells. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. So we have a few more storytellers to go, and I just want to say, if anyone's out there watching this and thinking, I could do that, and wants to give this a try, make sure after the show, talk to me, or you can like Let's Just Say's Facebook page. This is a monthly show, so there will be one in January. So yeah, just let me know if you're interested. And our next storyteller could basically go by just one name, but I'll say both of her names. Moosh Nickerson, everyone. Give a
Hi, everyone. I'm a full-grown adult woman, and I've arrived, I'm here, that's what I am, and I'm a good judge of character, and I'm a pretty good judge of assessing a situation. And this isn't going to get weird, this is all like, no above the belt, below the belt, feminist humor, this is all just a real story of something that's happened recently. But I should know by now, as an adult woman, that you can't trust anything that is able to slip into something a little more comfortable. That's just a gross phrase. Like, women say that when they want to sleep with you in movies, and that's gross. And women do that too at work, when they show up in high heels and then they go to their desk, and then they put the chain on, and then they slip their shoes off, and then they put on pedicure flip-flops, and then their chain there, and they sell money to banks and stuff. You shouldn't trust those people either. Marathon runners. I mean, I'm sure it's uncomfortable at first, but then they get to slide through the finish line and put on a cool, silvery, warm, burrito-y looking blanket thing that, I don't know, it's really cool. And cans of wine. I know that one sounds really, really obvious, but don't trust a can of wine. It can slip itself into a koozie, which is more comfortable for you and me, the holder of the can of wine. And it's probably also just keeps it all together nice and snug, like a nice pair of Spanx, so more comfortable for the wine. And that's just a long introduction to a very bad story. It's not a long story, it doesn't make me seem awesome, but I got drinks with a friend one day, and we went to Joe Bar, which you might have heard of. It's pretty hip and cool. I hear the menu is awesome, which I wouldn't know because I didn't look at a menu. I went there and I just looked at the cooler and I was like, that's cute, I like that one. It's pink and silvery and kind of like a marathoner's blanket that I don't have to run to get. I can just have it and hold it. And it's tiny, so I'm the blanket. It's like a reverse role play. I like it. I was super stoked about it. And I got that can of wine, and I drank it. And I got famously drunk on it because turns out wine is pretty famous for having more alcohol per volume than beer. Yeah, who knew? Other than alcoholics. And then I said the famous words, how much can a can of wine cost? I mean, really, how much can a can of wine cost? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're at minimum wage. New York price is still okay with it. 9, still okay with it. 10. Yeah, I paid $10 for a can of wine. 11, 12 plus tip. So I paid $12 plus tip for a single can of wine twice, because I actually bought 2 cans of wine that night. $24, like a king, spent on me to just have drinks. And I was not proud of it, but It's all true. Amy was there. She was the friend I was getting drinks with. She's now going to be taking the mic back from me.
You know what's a totally reasonable price is the $8 zombie killer that we have at the Go Bar right now. You know, that is probably the lowest price you're gonna find it. That goes for $12 easy. So you know, just throwing it out there in case you're already drinking. Our next storyteller is another comedian. His name is Jason Brent. Please give him a warm welcome.
You guys ever spend a Thanksgiving in an old folks' home on purpose? I did. I did that because my dad's fiance still has her dad, and he just went into the old folks' home, and they're like, we should just spend Thanksgiving there. It might be his last one. My dad's like, good idea. Let's pretend that's not sad. We're doing it potluck style, so I was expecting my brother to make a bunch of food too, so I didn't really have to do much. And he's like, no, I'm staying in with the wife, which is a card I'm jealous that I don't get to play. I haven't even dated anyone or even like had sex since like Obama was still a senator. I still did that. So, if I had that card, I would just play it all the time. Let's be honest, family time, there's always going to be something weird. And my brother wasn't wrong to expect something was going to be weird here. I'm in the old folks home for a few minutes, and the lady's asking me to help her escape to her sister's. The nurse I pointed out to her, the nurse was like, her sister's probably dead. So we were off to a great start. My job was to bring mashed potatoes, which was a fun job because I couldn't afford potatoes, so my dad had to buy me the potatoes he assigned me. And I had to make them at my brother's house because I didn't have a pot big enough to make potatoes for 15 people. Then I go and I realize this is going to be a pretty good time because my dad made most of the rest of the food. So it was very comforting to know that because like even though there's 12 people that I'm not used to, I'm used to being around like you many people because I like performing, but like one-on-one, I'm gonna keep doing that thing where I break eye contact wanting to leave, but you're not gonna recognize it because most people keep talking. Just not used to people. I didn't grow up even around a lot of family because I shouldn't say that because when I was younger, we had big family reunions all the time. Mostly just to hang out with grandma. We had grandmas everywhere at these parties. Then eventually we just ran out of grandmas. But the other big reason for these parties was my dad's food. And it was like, let's get together, eat Jason's dad's food, talk about eating more of his food at the next holiday. And then they didn't know that family time made my dad very angry because he didn't really like people either. But my mom knew that, so she'd be like, just cook, you're great at cooking, just cook in there so you only have to talk to the one person you trust to help you cook, and then just receive compliments all night. It was a great system. It was pretty cool. So I go, there's my dad's fiance's relatives with some screaming kids. One of them was practicing face plants on the floor. I didn't know. I didn't say anything, but in my head, I'm like, you can do that harder. The guests of honor, all 95 years old of him, and probably has dementia, I was told. He just gets rolled in, and everyone makes him a plate, and everyone sits down with their plates, and they make me sit down at the table instead of standing off to the side, because I'm the one who doesn't actually know anyone here. And my dad. And he was already talking to all these people because my dad's been dating this woman for a few years, so he's already been welcomed into the family while I'm just still watching. Because even if they knew me, it would still be weird for me. I'd be doing the eye contact thing and they wouldn't get it. But I sit down and everybody's like, oh my god, this stuffing is so good. My dad made the stuffing, so of course it's good. And the reason it was good was not the ingredients that they kept trying to guess. It was something I knew, because I grew up with him. I knew he was making it with so much love of hating family time. I've tried my dad's fiance stuffing, and it's fine, but it just doesn't taste the same. It tastes like actual love that's appropriate to have. The more I got into it, I was really happy for my dad to have all these people, because like my parents decided to separate a few years ago by one of them being dead. all the laughter that was over there, like you guys were supposed to be like so like I was 27, my dad was only like 56, so that's a lot of years left to do a lot more than just walk the dog and drink beer after work. So I'm happy for him. There's all this togetherness happening, and it looks like he actually is enjoying it now. And I'm starting to enjoy it too, and then something weird happened I wasn't expecting. Everybody got mad at me and the old man, because he kept calling me Kevin, and I didn't care enough to correct him. I was just like, why does it matter? Why can't I be Kevin? For all we know, it's his last holiday with us. Why should we let him die? I can't remember that guy's name, but he's here now. So I'm looking forward to Christmas now. If I go, it's probably still going to be in an old folks home. If I don't go, that'll be my dad and my brother both forgot to invite me to Christmas again. But I hope I go because that's a lot of togetherness and it's another opportunity to eat my dad's food that I grew up loving. And also, just another shot of like, just let me be Kevin. Thanks, guys.
Referring to this exact number of people as you many. Like I'm gonna remember that. It's like 25 people. So we've reached the penultimate storyteller. Please welcome Keenan Mullaney to the stage.
When I was growing up, the only time that I was allowed to choose where we were going to go to dinner was on my birthday. So on the eve of my 12th birthday, my dad called me up and asked, where would you like to go for dinner? And I said, I want to go to my favorite restaurant, Bill Knapp's. Do you guys remember Bill Knapp's? It was my favorite restaurant because it had the two most amazing food items in the world, and that was buttermilk biscuits with honey in that I devour. And then they also had the greatest birthday chocolate cake the world has ever known. So it was an easy decision. And I think I should pause and explain that when I was growing up, my parents got divorced when I was very young, and then my parents started taking jobs all across the country and even in Europe sometimes. So every school year I started at a new school. And my birthday was really close to the beginning of the school year. So when my birthday would come around, I didn't really have many friends yet, and kind of like the first weekend of school being in wasn't the most like, you should come to my birthday party! So my birthdays became kind of like a family occasion. And so the special thing for me was that I got to choose where to go for my birthday dinner And then my mom or my dad, but never both, and my sister and I would go to that restaurant, and it would be, really great, and I'd get some presents, and it was awesome. But when I was turning 12, it was the first year that I had gone to the same school for 2 years in a row. So now everything was going to be different, because the weekend before, I had had the best sleepover I'd ever had. In school that day, I was going to go to every single teacher, and I was going to get some candy from them. And then at night, my dad was going to take me, and we were going to follow the tradition of my birthday, and we were going to go out to dinner, and it was going to be amazing. So, woke up on my birthday, and I went to school. And then at 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center, followed shortly by another airplane crashing into the South Tower. And a lot of people talk about like, oh man, I know exactly where I was when I found out, when I saw September 11th. But in my school it was kind of weird because there was like a lot of confusion because the teachers first decided like, let's just have regular school, they'll find out about it later, it'll be fine. And then a bunch of parents started picking up their kids like left and right, and rumors started spreading like wildfire through the school. So pretty soon, the rumors started that New York was under attack, there was an army that had invaded Pennsylvania, the Pentagon had blown up, the president had been assassinated, and obviously, the next thing that was going to be attacked was my hometown of Lansing, Michigan. Now, there was some logic to that, I guess, because I don't know if you guys know this, but Lansing has an anthrax making facility. But why would that be the fifth thing that you attack in a terrorist attack? I still don't know. But still, us 11 and 12-year-olds were panicked. And so in order to dispel the fear and the panic, the teachers finally decided to just turn the TVs on. And I remember watching NBC News and Tom Brokaw, and we turned it on just as the first tower fell. And it was weird because even though we were so young, like I totally remember knowing how serious it was. I remember my teacher, Mr. Magzik, he had tears in his eyes, and it like hit everybody in class like, oh, like this is a real thing. Like this isn't just a normal day. This is a day that we're gonna remember forever. So needless to say, like it wasn't my birthday anymore. Like nobody needed to know. Nobody needed to sing. Nobody needed to give me candy. And I was just gonna get through the day. And I still had Bill Naps to look forward to, so I was just gonna keep going. But then early in the afternoon, surprise! My parents, who I've never seen in the same room together, brought cupcakes for everybody. So it was very awkward. Because everybody was like, oh, it's your birthday today? I'm sorry. Not happy birthday. You can't say happy on that day. It was I'm sorry. But kids aren't gonna like not eat cupcakes. So we just continued day, we ate cupcakes. Like you know how from high school and middle school, like you know one fact about like everybody that you can remember from that time, like Pat Munson's dad owns Playmakers, cool. Esme Honka's from South Africa, that's cool. Vinny Pepsidero got his dick stuck in a vacuum cleaner, that's pretty cool. Mine forever and always was King Mulaney. Didn't he bring cupcakes in on September 11th? So I somehow got through the rest of the school day and went home, and my mom went to go drive me to the restaurant to drop me off, and me and my sister off at Bill Naps. But instead of dropping us off, she parked the car, and she walked in with us, and my parents sat down on the same side of the same table at the same time for the first time that I can remember, and honestly I can't remember another time since that they've done that. And we ended up having the quietest meal I've ever had in my entire life. Because we couldn't really talk about what had happened that day, and my parents weren't going to go ahead and start chit-chatting about anything. They were still divorced, so there was no like common ground apparently. But so we ate those buttermilk biscuits with honey in silence, and I can't even remember what I ate for my main course because those biscuits and cake were so good. But we had cake in silence, and years later, I remember asking my mom, why did you do that? Why did you come to school with a bunch of cupcakes on September 11th? And she told me that she just didn't want, her and my dad just didn't want me to remember that day as being awful. They wanted me to have one good memory of that day. And I don't know if that's what if cupcakes were like the best thing to do. But that's what we did. And then I asked her, why did you guys have dinner together with us? And I remember my mom saying that that in that day she and my dad both just wanted me to know that they were always gonna be there for me, and that it didn't matter that they were divorced, they were both my parents, and that they both loved me. So when I think of September 11th, I of course think of the worst terrorist attack in American history, and I think of the deaths, and I think of the heroes, but I also remember that my parents really loved me. So thank you.
Thank you, Keenan. We have reached the last storyteller, and thank you so much for staying with us for this long. We had a really full lineup, kind of anticipating a few cancellations, and no one did, so we had a very full show for you. And our last storyteller is a local comedian, and I have to mention that last Friday, he was featured on the Detroit episode of Kevin Hart's Heart of the City on Comedy Central, which is a big deal. So please give it up for your last storyteller, Jeff Horst.
I'm still laughing at during a touching September 11th story, hearing a harmonica go. It was going to be a September 11th song was going to break out. I'm going to tell you guys about the worst show I've ever done in my entire life, doing stand-up comedy. I did it recently, a couple of months ago. Stay humble. And I was asked by an old acquaintance, an old high school acquaintance, to perform at a wedding. He said, "Can you do an hour?" I said, "I can, but I won't." and he said, "What about 30 minutes?" And I said, "Sure." And in my head, I'm like, I'm just gonna do 15. He doesn't fucking get it. Because nobody should. A wedding is like, hey, let's talk to your family you haven't seen in years, you know what I mean? It's not like, hey, shut up and listen to the random guy who wasn't invited. Like, that's not a good part of any wedding. So I got there at 3:45, which was not a good time to get there, because that was the time I was supposed to be telling jokes. I was supposed to be performing. This was at like a Grand River and McNichols area, and the basement of the church was where the reception was going to be, and I was supposed to perform at 3:45. I got there at 3:45, dressed for a comedy show, which just means I was wearing clothes, right? But I was not dressed to be at a wedding, because the wedding was still going on. So now I'm just some random white dude, the only white dude in the back of an all-black church, just wearing jeans and a hoodie. And it's not a good look, to be honest, for the situation. I'm getting more nervous about the show when I realized that there was really only like 20 people at this wedding, all of which were 90 or 6. So those people don't have a lot in common. And I was at least looking forward I was at least looking forward to eating the food after the wedding. It's usually the best part of a wedding, is the amazing food. I mean, yeah, love, whatever, fuck that shit. But to me, it's the food. However, not so in this performance. I was about 2 minutes in. I wasn't doing that bad just yet. And they decided to set up an amazing array of beautiful dishes all along the wall that nobody was allowed to get up and get to until after I was done. So now everybody's looking at me like this fucking white guy is the reason why I can't eat right now. Fuck this guy. It's not a good situation for me whatsoever. It actually got a little bit worse. This is when it starts to get worse. People aren't paying attention anymore. Nobody really cares. Because they didn't know that I was going to be their entertainment for the day. They thought a wedding, maybe a DJ. No, a comedian who has to be clean because it's a wedding and there's kids around. Like, that wasn't what anybody was promised that signed up for this. So the sister of the groom, who, by the way, I forgot to mention, the guy that was getting married was the person who asked me to perform at a wedding. He never told me that he was getting married. That's the level of friendship that we really had, was I didn't know. I'm not on your Facebook like that. You know what I mean? Like, you could have mentioned that. I could have tried to prepare some material and lied to your group of friends and made them think that we were better friends than we were. You know what I mean? But I didn't have anything ready for that situation. So his sister walks up, middle of the set, mid-joke, just walks up, just like timing doesn't exist in comedy, just walks up and tells me that I have to introduce the bride and groom, which is fine, but then I responded accidentally, still on the microphone, with, "What's the bride's name?" Once again, I wasn't really that good of friends with the guy, so I don't know, why am I supposed to be a bad person for trying to get the name right? She said what I thought was, it was Anisha. It was actually La Nisha, which is, you think is close enough to make grandma not upset. You know what I mean? But not close enough. The worst part wasn't that I got their name wrong. The worst part was I said, "Give it up for Leon and Anisha." Everybody stood up out of their seats. Everybody clapped. Everybody looked at the doorway, and nobody walked through the doorway. Everybody looked at me like I just created some weird wedding prank, when I'm just obeying the instructions that the lady that interrupted my comedy gave me. So we waited there awkwardly for like 2 minutes while they took their time. You know how weird that is? Like right now, if I just stopped talking for 2 minutes and you all stared at me, that'd be really weird for everybody. But that was my job. So I waited 2 minutes, I gave them a, they clapped again, like we ruined it, not as loud the second time either. It was like, the good clap was the first one. They all clapped for them to come through again. I thought it would be fun to point out to everybody, you know, like, hey, good thing that me and Leon aren't really that good of friends, otherwise I could have made fun of him more. But then I think that just made everybody in the audience feel awkward because they just assumed we were good friends. And instead I was like, I barely knew the guy. I just knew he liked to play baseball and was short. Like, I didn't know anything about him. I tried to get into more of my material. At one point, I asked the audience, the 20 people, I said, who in here likes to drink? And someone was like, we're at church. I said, okay, fair enough. So who here likes to drink after church? Did you hear my fucking question? I didn't say the fucking part. I left that out of there. I had that presence of mind at the time. But it's just like, well, don't kid yourself. So then somebody actually yelled out from the back of the room and said, drinking is a sin. To which I was unfortunately religious back in my day. So I responded with, no, actually, drinking is not a sin. Being drunk is a sin. So if you really want to get your life right with Jesus, you need to increase your alcohol tolerance and take a few shots. Good Lord. Can I get an amen? And I kind of got the audience back. Like that was like some Bible humor for them, you know what I mean? And finally, you're saying some things we can relate to, you know what I mean? Like it was weird. I got him back for a second. Until I went into my last joke, which I did not know was going to be my last joke, which is never a good sign. If you're curious how like stand-up is, you usually know what you're gonna say. You know when it's gonna end usually. I did not. So I went into a quick joke that involved. It's never gonna be as good as September 11th harmonica. It never is. Nothing's gonna beat September 11th harmonica. But I went into a joke that involved Leon. I thought I'd get the audience on board after the awkwardness I already created about how I was one of the token white kids in my high school growing up, and anytime somebody made fun of me, I just used the fact that they didn't know that many white people against them, so I wouldn't look stupid. So they would be like, hey, Jeff is hairy, Jeff looks like a hobbit. That's what somebody said one time, and I was like, no, you idiot, all white people are this hairy. You guys remember being in high school? Nobody wants to be the stupid guy in a group of friends. So Leon was actually the one who was just like, yeah, you didn't know that? All white people are hairy. And I created a stereotype. And it actually ended. This is how my set ended. You see, I wanted to say the joke as I just told it to you guys. However, I didn't get to say it like that because his sister interrupted me once again, walked on stage, in the middle of my joke, told me that I had to introduce the pastor because it was time to bless the food. So how it actually went was, you idiot, all white people are hairy. And now we shall bless the food.
Thank you, everyone. That is all we have for tonight. Thank you for coming to Let's Just Say. And real quick, I want to say the theme for the next show is going to be money. Like, who doesn't have a money story? Like, most stories are about money. So the next show is going to be on Thursday, January 18th. If you're interested in the show, come talk to me after. And other than that, have a great night and drive safe. Thank you.